we got a situation we wanted to talk about this week. Chris and Greg, 55 and 48, have a couple of kids, a married couple. The kids are 20 and 21. They're about to, get out of college, but the kids are, not Chris and Greg at 55 and 48. You'd hope their college days are behind them, but you never know. I went to school late, and I'd go to school tomorrow, in fact, if I could. You'd just ask my wife. Chris and Greg are trying to correct the wrongs of 2020. Greg was let go from his job when his company downsized in November when the pandemic was gaining numbers again. He was able to get a job starting in February, so he's about to go back to work. They've basically been living paycheck to paycheck on Chris's salary, so the savings took a bit of a hit. Glad they had savings, DJ. That's step one, right? In financial planning. They stopped saving to their IRAs. Ouch. And Chris stopped her 401k distributions. Or contributions, sorry, and they want to get back on track now that Greg is soon to be employed. So this, to me, is kind of a story of green shoots where we're starting to think about what happens when we're opening back up. These guys are kind of typical of those who definitely have something to look forward to, getting out of the financial hole that they have dug themselves due to,
unforeseen circumstances.
Yeah, situation beyond their own control. So they say they've gotten some better habits, and we've seen this kind of across the board. We've seen obviously during the pandemic, we've seen cash gain as people were able to get money from excess for unemployment. Obviously, with Greg, if he were just laid off in November, probably didn't take part in a lot of that. But it's a pretty widespread situation. So there's a lot of cash in the hands of consumers. They're still not spending as much.
Yeah, not traveling, not going out to dinner, not
going to the bar. I mean, there's a lot of things.
Clothing, all this.
Right. You can, unless you count pajamas as new clothing. Not too many people are buying it these days. You hadn't bought a new suit in a while.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. That's going to be interesting to watch to see if the SEC does something about this. Because that's going to be the next movement, right? I mean, you got whatever.
What does the SEC do? What side do they come down on?
Well, is
it market manipulation?
I think
it's pretty easy to make that case, but it's also easy enough to make the case that when a hedge fund shorts something and comes out and says, "Oh, guess what, guys? We're short this thing."
Yeah, but
aren't they doing something similar? So, we've seen revolving credit, most specifically credit card debt, wane. And, we just want to have a conversation around some of the things that might be going on out there. And by the way, if you had savings, you were among the few going into this pandemic. Yeah. Hopefully, what we hope we all learned as a financial planning firm is that it never has it been more at the forefront of our mind that you need to have that savings account, that emergency savings.
Important.
Yeah. So, DJ, is there anything else that you can think of that might actually be good to point out during a situation like this?
Well, I think
what have we learned and where are we going from
I think
here?
we've seen this before, right? When we had similar conversations 2008, 2009, when you have a struggle, you're not doing a lot, when things get scary. Yes, you're using savings if you've gone out and you're not doing the 401ks, but you start to get your house in order, right? You start to figure out what you're, again, we were somewhat forced. Now, remember, this financial crisis essentially is different than 2008.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely.
This was a completely different scenario. This is not a financial crisis. This was, America shutting down. This was the world shutting down for a little while. Right. That's what the problem was with this. So it's definitely different from 2008. But, you take a step back and you realize what you can and stop spending where you can or are forced to stop spending where you can.
Sure.
So you definitely, I think it was interesting, the Financial Resiliency Survey conducted by KeyBank, they had a survey at the beginning of the year. 42% said that they could pay for a $2,000 unexpected bill. At the end of September, the same survey says 51%. So it shows that if you made it through successfully, you're starting to save. You're starting to put more into savings accounts, right? And I think that's such an important. Use your emergency reserves. Stop saving. That's okay. You will get back to saving. You have to remember. I mean, I know one thing that they did say is that there's some college, expenses that they're not going to be able to help with.
Right.
And that's okay. You can finance college. You can
Exactly.
get grants. You can get loans. You cannot finance your retirement.
That's true.
You can help your children pay off college loans. You
Oh, you're
cannot
telling
have
me
your
that-
children will not help you retire.
You're telling me
in those
that
cases.
if I had planned by using just a reverse mortgage, that I'm not going to make it through, DJ?
It's not a great option. That is an option, but not a great option.
Yeah.
You know?
It's kind
Well,
of
and
a
on-
source of last resorts for income.
Yes.
Right?
They did
Well, and it's
exactly what they
interesting with
intended.
like the new internet generations. It's not like this couldn't happen again if somebody takes to Reddit and it takes off.
Well, that's the thing. I think now you've proven, like it's happened before, but now this is a big news article. So this is something that they can now come back and say, hey, we've done it. We're successful. We can do it again. This is the way we can now. Okay, you want to go about it that way? We're going to do this, and we're gonna do it the way we're going to do it. You know.
Well, and on that note about the retirement, it says they stopped saving to their IRAs. You can fund those through April 15th, the tax deadline.
Ah.
So to the extent that he's now employed and they have that additional savings, it's not too late for your 2020 contribution.
So a couple of more months of ramen noodles, and you're saying that he could maybe catch up on the retirement account. All right, and he's over 50, so he could.
Catch up contribution.
Yeah, he's got a little time to do some of that. Yeah, I'm going to take a nap, and well, it is after 2 o'clock. DJ knows I fall
he's got to
asleep.
fall asleep.
Usually while I'm talking, but So getting back into our conversation, we were talking about Chris and Greg, 55 and 48. They have 2 kids, 20 and 21. Greg was laid off in November due to complications with his job, with his employer at the time. He has found a new position, starts next month in February. Next month is just a few days away, right?
That's right.
Some of the lessons they've learned, they did have to draw on their savings, so yay for them. They had savings,
That's good.
emergency fund, which they were definitely in the minority there. A lot of folks don't do that, and it would have benefited them greatly had they been able to do that. But now they're facing the kids are facing some situation in college where they're not going to be able to. The parents aren't going to be able to help so much. DJ, you made the point. It's
It's
not
okay to get a loan to help them out. I mean,
Yeah.
again, once you're back on your feet, once you've got your finances back in order after this unprecedented time, you can help pay the loan off.
Yeah,
But at least
we
it's
should
a
have a
gap.
jar, like a square jar, anytime somebody says unprecedented.
I know we should. I know.
I think from now on, starting right now.
Right now,
Yeah,
It's
buck,
going in.
buck
I'm
for every
putting a-
time you say that.
putting a penny in.
All right,
you know.
you got the last one, DJ.
All right. But yeah, I think for you, since you're going back to work, it's okay that you had to raid your savings. So start back. Start back with small contributions to your emergency reserve. Start the 401k contributions. If you can save to the IRA, do that. Help with your students or your children with getting the student loans. Do what you need to do. Again, you can in the future pay that off, help them, or pay it off once you're back on your feet. Once you get that job, it's never too late to begin again. It's okay that you had to raid your savings or your 401k or your IRA. It's now time to get back on your feet. And the way to do that is, once again, small changes, every paycheck, baby steps.
Yeah, I mean, you just came through a really tight, difficult financial time. You had savings. You obviously didn't spend as much, and you're not alone in that. We have seen quite a bit of excess cash on the sidelines. A lot of folks have paid off credit cards. So kind of channel, if you will, the lessons that you've learned. Do not forget what you just learned.
Right.
If you don't have that emergency savings set aside, there is a rule of thumb, right?
Yeah.
3 to 6 months, is that it?
Absolutely. 3 to 6 months of your expenses in savings. you
Yeah.
know? And again, you're never expected to think that I'm going to get a bonus and put $20,000 in savings. No, you have to reward yourself when things start to open and go enjoy life. Start.
Yeah.
Plug it away.
Right.
Every paycheck. It's a habit, right? It's a lifestyle. It's not a once a year.
Right.
It's a lifestyle decision to spend the way you should be spending, save the way you should be saving. If you wait the day before your taxes are due, you're probably not going to be able to look at all of the options available for savings, right? You're too late at that point. It's conversations that need to be had all year. It's your habits that get you to where you're going to be eventually.
Yeah,
and it starts with a little bit.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Don't get sloppy. And Jesse, you said we've got until what, the end of April to
April 15th.
Oh, okay. So the normal tax deadline, April 15th, to fund your IRAs. So, it's not too late. If you are working and you have the wherewithal to do so, we do encourage you to go ahead and sock a little bit away.
Yeah. And if you're listening to this and you're still out of work, remember, call your creditors. Renegotiate the rates if you can. Talk to them about your situation, and they may be able to help. Right now you've got mortgages or rent that's coming due. There are programs available to help with, not being evicted or foreclosed upon, but you have to communicate. Don't just not pay the bills. You have to call them. You have to communicate with these creditors to figure out a way to get back on good standing. But I think we all understand that it's a tough time. This too shall pass. Don't just ignore the debts that you have. Let's figure out a way for them to understand that you're going to try the best you can when you can.
I think it is best. I mean, if you find yourself in a troubled spot, it's totally understandable now. But taking it head on is definitely the way to get through and have maybe salvage some of your credit on the backside of that. Well, I've shared this on the air before. My first ever trade I did when I was 21 years old. I bought a stock, $1,500 trade. Cost me $125 commission. Yeah. And that was not a bad rate at the time.
Yeah. We talked about it 2 weeks ago.
I remember. It was,
and then, a little while later, I was transacting per transaction $29.95, and that was awesome.
Yeah.
A whole lot better than my first trade, and now
$99 for the transaction.
Mm-hmm.
That was a deal. I got it for $99. I could sell for $99.
Yeah, look at this.
This is amazing.
I'm saving 20%. DJ, I hate to be the wet blanket, but as the investment guy, we know that the economy is still struggling a bit. We've got unemployment at 6.7%. It's almost 7%, but it is falling slowly. We've got things out there like, rent that's being ignored by some. Not necessarily ignored, but, there's you can't be evicted in
there's
some
programs
areas.
put in place to help
Right.
The foreclosures and the evictions as we stand today.
Well, and the situation is, though, there's some that actually have whipped this into a fear that maybe when we see some clarity on these vaccinations and the pandemic has passed by the time we breach that 70% vaccinations or those who have had COVID. There are those that say, well, what are we going to do? Just, are we going to forgive rents? I don't think that has ever been talked about.
I don't see that. I
And I think some are actually fearful that saying on your mark, get set, go, you got to pay rent again. And, oh, by the way, catch your rent up, is going to be a spot that could damage the economy. But I will tell you that as much attention as we are getting from the government on this, and it's not something, this is kind of a fine line to walk, but the reality is if you listen to what the Biden administration is telling us, first of all, they want to get the COVID pandemic in check.
Yes.
And secondly, they want to boost the economy. So I would find it very difficult to believe that they would just force people into a spot where, it would really cause damage to the economy.
Right.
I really believe that we're going to be able to get through.
No, I believe that. I do. And I think if you are struggling, do what you can to pay the bills, but don't on hopes that the government will bail you out. don't not pay and not communicate. It's very important because who
Yeah,
knows
do what
what's
you
going to
can.
happen. Do what you can. Do what
for
you can.
sure.
Continue to
Exactly.
have those conversations.
Yeah.
Because we just don't know. It's still important to do what we can do.